Welcome back. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent meeting privately with House Republicans discussing how voters will evaluate the GOP tax and trade policies ahead of the 2026 midterms. The meeting was hosted by House Budget Chairman Jodey Arrington and focused on President Trump's economic strategy, including growth initiatives and how to reduce federal deficits as the national debt surpasses $38 trillion. Joining me now, the man himself, Texas Congressman, Chairman of the House Budget Committee, Jodey Arrington. Mr. Chairman, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Can you tell us about the meeting?
Yeah, it was a great meeting. The Secretary was kind to applaud the work of a lot of budget hawks that were pushing to bend that curve on spending, which has the benefits of strengthening the economy, putting downward pressure on interest rates and prices, and actually looks into the future to make sure that we're not just doing well by the voters of today, but our children and grandchildren into the future, which is why we all celebrated that the deficit to GDP has gone down for the first time in a decade if you control for COVID, and why the bond markets are responding. That's a key indicator. They have confidence in our fiscal constraint and our plan for growing the economy. So all things very positive there. And then, of course, we talked about the progress made from the pro-growth, pro-energy, pro-work policies of the big, beautiful bill. Prices are coming down along with interest rates, both short and long term. Real wages are going up, business investment going up. And then, of course, in the calendar year, you'll have the largest refund checks. And according to Piper Sandler, about $200 billion in tax relief for reduced withholdings, more money in people's pockets and their bank accounts. So everything is looking good, and it's only building momentum month by month.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned all of the things that so many analysts on Wall Street say we're being set up for 2026 for a very strong backdrop, a good economy. But you also discussed the president's proposal to send $2,000 tariff rebate checks to Americans. You're not a fan of that idea.
No, I think what happened with the Trump policies in the first term is not only did we have record investment and job growth, but we had record wage and income increases. I think that's the best way to put money in people's pockets, is to trust our good pro-growth policies and get good fundamentals in the economy. And look, we have record revenue coming in from tariffs. That is helping our fiscal prospects. That's helping the economy, but it's also strengthening the health of America's balance sheet. What we ought to do is keep paying down the debt. The dividend check should be to our children and grandchildren as restitution for the intergenerational theft for all these years, and the $38 trillion and counting in debt that's completely unsustainable. Maria, that is the right way to do it, and it will have the benefits, again, of downward pressure on prices and strengthening the economy, because it will stop crowding out so much private capital on account of the almost $2 trillion in annual borrowing.
Yeah, I hear you. In fact, that was my initial reaction as well. I said, well, wait a minute, we've got $38 trillion in debt. Shouldn't that money be going toward that and not sending checks out? But, you know, I heard from viewers, and some of them were upset by the remark. They said, no, Maria, maybe you don't want the $2,000, but I do. And they want that money. So, I mean, there is a question right now about the consumer strength, especially when you see all these buy now, pay later schemes.
Yeah, well, look, we need the income, take-home pay, to go up, and we need prices to go down. We need them to continue on that path, and they are, and they will continue in greater fashion. In fact, with the locking in of TCJA permanent, you're going to get upward of $10,000 in increased pay for median household income families of four. And you're, like I said, you're going to have lots of refund checks, and you're going to have more take-home pay after the reduction in withholdings in the new calendar year. So to me, that's the right approach. Let's get the economy growing. Let's have that record wage and income increase that we saw in the first Trump administration. Wait till we start locking in the trade deals, opening up new markets, having that level playing field for our farmers, for our manufacturers. I mean, we can believe what happened in the first Trump administration because of our principles embedded in our policies. We'll yield the same prosperity in this round because we've just supercharged that.
Yeah, and I think President Trump has been messaging that, saying, look, I want you to be richer, I want you to feel stronger, happier, and that's why I'm going to send this money out. So we'll watch where that goes. Does that need congressional approval?
It would.
The $2,000 checks. Yeah.
Sure.
And do you think that you and your colleagues would vote for it? Do you think that would pass?
The last time a bunch of checks were sent out from Washington, D.C., it didn't work out very well. A lot of fraud and record high inflation and a cost of living crisis. That was the legacy of Joe Biden. President Trump knows how to get the economy going. Let's get good fundamentals, and we'll yield the results that will be sustainable, not a quick fix, not political expediency, good long-term fundamentals.
Very good. All right, let me move on. You are calling for an independent audit of the Congressional Budget Office. You're emphasizing the CBO's critical role in providing accurate, timely, and transparent fiscal analysis. While the House unanimously voted to strip the Arctic frost provision out of the government funding bill, it would have allowed senators who've had their communications tapped to sue the federal government, and that means Joe Biden's FBI and DOJ, Mr. Chairman. What's wrong with some accountability here for wrongful tapping and surveillance of sitting senators?
Well, there needs to be accountability. It was an abuse of power. It's part of the Joe Biden legacy of a culture of corruption at DOJ. But the right way to do it is fire the people involved and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. And if we need to increase penalties for that, let's do that. I think it's completely tone deaf and wrong-headed to have this $500,000 payout for senators as the remedy. And look, Maria, it is rare that Democrats and Republicans agree unanimously on something, but every single House member voted that to that sentiment to repeal that provision, not enrich senators as a way to remedy this issue. Yeah,
I mean, I am all about accountability. I want to see accountability from all of this conspiracy of the last 10 years. I think it's wrong.
Absolutely.
The way that President Trump was treated. But I also understand the notion of you want a clean CR. You're trying to push for a clean CR this whole time, right? You don't want the Obamacare subsidies in there, and then, they jam in something about getting a $500,000 payout for senators if they win in a lawsuit against Biden's DOJ. I mean, that's not exactly a clean CR, so I give you that.
Yes. No, you're right. Again, we're going to repeal that. I suspect the Senate will, too, now with the public pressure. But it was two wrongs don't make a right. It was wrong what happened to them. We can remedy that without enriching the senators and sending a really bad message to the American people.
Mr. Chairman, I know that a lot of conversation is now around the midterm elections, but you've got this 3-judge panel ruling that Texas cannot use its newly drawn congressional map for next year's election, and that Texas has to use the 2021 map instead. Texas AG Ken Paxton wants the Supreme Court to get involved. He wants them to reverse this ruling. But give us your reaction to this, and what's the difference in these maps? What does this mean for Republicans?
Well, it means 5 seats to strengthening our hand in November in terms of Republican leadership, which means that we can support the president for 2 more years of the America First agenda, which I believe, and I think the American people believe, is making everybody in this country safer, stronger, and more prosperous. That's what it ultimately means. I think the decision will be repealed by the Supreme Court, and the judge that wrote the majority opinion has been overturned in matters such as this in the past. And so I think that's going to happen again. Look, the legislatures make these decisions. It is the will and is the reflection of the values and interests of Texas in this case. And case law and the Constitution support that delegated authority. And I believe it'll be upheld in the Supreme Court.
All right, we will leave it there. Congressman, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Great to see you, Maria.